St Mary's Star of the Sea War Memorial Cathedral is the third church to stand on this site. The first was a small wooden church built by Jesuit missionaries in the 1880s. It lasted only until the cyclone of 1897. A second church was built in much the same style. When Father Francis Xavier Gsell was appointed Darwin's first bishop in 1938, this small wooden church became his cathedral. During World War II, the church was extended by the troops so as to accommodate its growing congregation. This second church, and first cathedral, stood until 1974, when its days were ended by Cyclone Tracy. As Darwin grew after the war, the need for a new St Mary's became evident, and Bishop John O'Loughlin set about building a new cathedral. Working to plans prepared by Ian Ferrier of the firm J.P. Donoghue, Cusick and Edwards of Brisbane, construction commenced in December 1957. The laying of the foundation stone took place the following July. And the new cathedral was finally opened and solemnly blessed in August 1962. At first, Carl Johansson was in charge of construction. In 1962, John Darcy took over. His involvement had begun in 1957, and he saw the cathedral through to its completion. John Darcy remembers well the mighty task of building the present St Mary's.
The greatest experience I ever had was the bishop giving me the cathedral to look after. And I'd just finished St Margaret Mary School at Fanny Bay, and the bishop brought me in here. I was only 25 when I worked on this place, and I was frightened of it, looking at the drawings and saying, how am I going to do this, But Bishop O'Loughlin, he had a lot of confidence in me, apparently. I was the first to start on here, and I was the last to finish. And one of the jobs I did was to set the building out. We used piano wire because it was such a long building. The steelwork came from Bestie's meatwork, but it's all cast iron and a very, very difficult material to work with.
At the time of its construction, St Mary's Cathedral would have stood out as one of the most modern buildings in Darwin, as well as the tallest. Its architecture is unique in Australia, a series of soaring parabolic arches defining a contemporary neo-Gothic design. Parabolic arches had been used in churches elsewhere in the world, but nowhere on the scale nor with the success of St Mary's.
One of the things that I was pleased with was the parabolic arches and the steelwork. We put all that steelwork together. And then after we got all the steelwork up, then we concreted it. And we did it in 6-foot rises to concrete the columns. But in those days there was no ready mixed concrete, and we had a big 1 yard concrete mixer just out here, and it would take about 3 hours to mix up a batch of concrete. All the parquetry was done at Garden Point Mission. There was an Italian joiner, best joiner I've ever seen, Manlio Petrocchi, and he cut all the timber at Garden Point, 20,000 pieces. It's what they call ironwood. What its botanical name is, I don't know, but locally it's known as ironwood. The main stonework, all the sawn stonework, we had a big gang saws down at the quarry, and I put big metre by metre stones on it, and then we just cut right through them, about 4 inches thick. The main arch out the front took a lot longer, and the two sides, once again we did them in 6 foot lifts. But the secret was to work out the parabolic and where you start and where you finish. So in due course I spoke to one of the architects from the Department of Works actually, and asked him how I should do it, because I didn't have a clue. And he was very generous. But I'd say it would have been Bishop O'Loughlin, because he had a flair for things, and something different. And he wanted something that was different for Darwin. So it was one of the greatest experiences I ever had, was to work on this in this building, and to actually be in charge of it.
The building of St Mary's Star of the Sea War Memorial Cathedral coincided with the beginnings of great change in the Catholic Church, as well as in the wider society. Today it continues to stand, a house of God and God's people, a place of worship, prayer and devotion. St Mary's is the Bishop's Church, a sign of unity for the Catholic community throughout the Northern Territory in the vast diocese of Darwin. The cathedral honours those who served in times of war, especially those who made the ultimate sacrifice by giving their lives, and it reminds us to pray and work for peace. And through its majestic architecture, it gives silent witness to the abiding presence of God among us.